Hi, Erik. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you too. It's been a minute.
So, we are going to be talking about the inner selves and all of that good stuff, but I thought we would pick a card per usual, one of our inner selves cards. What do
All
you
right,
think?
all right. Let's
So,
do
should
it.
we each pick one? I'll pick for, or do we pick one self and share it and say what it means, that one self means to both of us or each of us?
I kind of like the idea of we each pick one because, I mean, I could go either way, but I sort of like the idea of for some reason when you pick one, it somehow has a
Perfect.
relationship to you and your place wherever you're dealing with right now.
All right. So I'll shuffle because obviously I have them, but you tell me when to stop and I'll pick yours. And then you tell me when to stop and I'll pick mine. So this is me shuffling now. Tell me when to stop for your card.
And stop.
Okay. I have it down. And then this is mine. Tell me when to
Okay,
stop.
but you got to do this. If it's
Completely on my
yours.
own. Okay. My abandoned self is like, what? But all right. I'll hold on to the, oh, here, it jumped out. All right. Great. So we're seeing these for the first time. This is yours, Erik. Oh, nurturer.
Nurturer. Wow.
Should I tell you mine so we know both know ours at the same time, or do you want to go? And then mine is doo-doo-doo. I don't even know. The
The,
perform.
the performer. Oh, wow. That's so cool.
So you start. What does the nurturer self mean to you today?
Wow, that's so interesting. Well, it's interesting because it's a very much a primary self of mine. I mean, I work as a voice dialogue facilitator, a wellness coach, a personal trainer. I coach actors. Like all the things that I do are involve nurturing. And I feel like as a partner, I'm really embracing that part of myself. Is a big part of being a partner is being a nurturer. And so I don't know. I've been kind of leaning into that more. I would say this year, which has been interesting because I'm a personal trainer. January is historically a very busy month, and this has been pretty crazy. Like it's been great. Business is good, knock on wood, and I'm like really busy, but it's also like a lot of work time. And I decided that I was going to kind of lean into it a little bit this year, and that part of that is leaning into the nurturer. And so I've been like doing that, and I feel like I'm enjoying it more. I'm not getting overwhelmed as much. It's fun. To a certain degree, I have to kind of like be able to be in center and move back and like take care of other parts of myself. But the nurture has been like really helpful, and I feel like when I embrace that part of myself, then it's fun. Even when I'm busy, I can make it's fun because it's like I'm getting gratification out of helping someone and nurturing them towards whatever their goals are. Um, and or taking care of them in some way. And so that's yeah, it's something. And the nurturing thing, I guess I kind of said something that interested me. It piqued my. I said caretaking. I think caretaking is different. Like nurturing is sort of like you're nurturing someone towards something. And I think that's something that I've really been getting into. And I think that's why I have so much more energy this year in January, is because instead of getting, oh, these people are ambivalent, they're not really going to stick with it. I'm like, no, you know what? I'm going to pick some kind of goal that I can help them, nurture them towards, even if it's for a short period of time, even if it's towards making a decision, even if it's towards making one concrete step throughout this entire month. And in doing that, it's like, it's really, I don't know, it's really helped invigorate me. So yeah, that part is definitely a big part of where I'm at right now.
I love that. It's inspiring to me. Also, the difference between how you talk about nurturer versus caretaker, it's almost like caretaker, even if it's innocent, you're taking care of somebody because they broke a leg, they can't do it. You're literally taking their care for them. But what you described was, well, let me nurture what you can do. And so I
Yes.
really, and like putting it back on them. And the idea of embracing it means you're having more fun. So you are getting nurtured in the process. But
Yeah,
you,
absolutely. I definitely feel that. It's like, wow, I've actually helped someone make a long-term change that really feels good.
wow. Well, mine is the performer. And I'm a former performer, literally. I was a professional performer, and that's how I found voice dialogue when I was performing. And that's what moved me over to become a voice dialogue facilitator and ultimately a therapist. But it's funny that here it is. Uh, there's a part of me that just loves to perform, literally perform. And lately, I've been getting into five rhythms, which is a type of ecstatic dance that's been around for 50 years. And it's no substances, you just go to dance. And I've been doing it 2 or 3 times a week for weeks now. And it's like enlivening to my performer. And it's all improv, so there's nothing to prepare. And so there's a part I can play different parts of myself on the dance floor. But I have to admit, they're my performer, AKA in this moment, I'll call her the show off. That's like, man, I still got my kicks, you know? I can kind of go backwards down the dance floor, and it's so much fun. Uh, and here we are performing in a way, although we're also talking conversationally. So I love these cards, as I know you do too. What are you thinking? I see a thought crossing your face.
I was just laughing. I just adore you. I find the way that you say things to be hilarious and also like poignant because you're like
Oh,
and talking conversationally. I don't know. I just thought it was funny the way you said it.
well, thank you. And the adoration goes both ways. Well, some of these I kind of know the answer to, but what I've been finding out when I've been doing these interviews is that I find out things I didn't know. And so, one of the things I wanted to start with, like for those that don't know you and have no idea what you do and what you're about, you could give us a sense. And also, how did you find voice dialogue?
Well, yeah, I kind of alluded to it. I work as a personal trainer, a wellness coach, and then I'm also an actor, a writer, and I coach actors. Um, I found voice dialogue initially in an acting class, actually, with Eric Morris, who is still teaching acting in his early 90s in LA. But at the time that I found him was in New York City. He was doing a weekend workshop with this other teacher that he works with or used to work with in New York called named Anthony Bova. And it was all about subpersonalities, which was essentially voice dialogue that he had learned by doing sessions with Hal Stone, one of the creators of voice dialogue, on the West Coast decades before, and he realized it could have such an impact on actors, and so he created a whole technique based on voice dialogue called subpersonality, which is very similar. It's just there's subtle differences, but it's very similar to conventional, traditional voice dialogue, and so yeah, I took a weekend workshop and I was blown away. I was blown away by the results. I saw people access parts of themselves that they had been taking months to kind of run into a brick wall. And within 30 seconds of a facilitation, they completely accessed it, totally embodied this part of themselves. And it gave me goosebumps. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then I had my experience, which was also really profound. And so that was sort of my gateway. Then I was just like, I have to learn more, And so I kind of went on this journey to finding voice dialogue. That's how we met. And,
Yeah.
you know, the rest is history.
I love that. Yeah. The voice dialogue, the gateway to all of yourselves. But it's
Yeah.
true. It's so true. Um, and so one of the things I wanted to ask you is you mentioned so many different roles or I guess, and professions that you have: actor, writer, voice dialogue facilitator, fitness trainer. And do these identities support each other, or are you in supportive relationship with them, or do they compete with each other? How do you manage literally all of these types of work and different parts of yourself?
It's a really great question. Yes to all of the above. They do compete with each other, and this work does help immensely within each one and to create balance through all of them, I feel. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm personally for myself, everyone is different. Like I came into voice dialogue very strongly connected to my doer. So I've always been someone that was like very much about getting things done and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it 100%. And I wasn't as connected to the part of myself that was more of a beer. And so that's been a huge journey of mine of embracing that part and finding balance there. And now I kind of in some ways prefer being to doing. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so like my exercise and fitness coaching thing is is very much, that part of me is very much the doer. How do you put one foot in front of the other? How do you show up to do something, to accomplish something? How do you motivate yourself to do something? How do you find the parts of yourself that are doers? Because a lot of the clients that I get are not connected to the doer part of themselves. They're more the beer. They're more, connected to parts of themselves that are, the opposite of exercise. They're less inclined. They look at exercise as being torturous or, inconvenient, not fun. They connected to experiences they had maybe in grade school, gym class, stuff like that. And so it's like they have injuries to deal with. So how do we find that part of themselves that feels safe in doing? And that's a big journey of mine within that realm. But all the other realms are also connected to different parts of myself. And I think the more that I've done this work, it's made it a lot easier to find balance. Because like you said, there is a competitiveness between like the beer wanting to be the center of attention, the doer wanting to be the center of attention, and they all need a place. And I think what's cool about having these different roles is that these different parts of myself get to be the leading role in this area. And then this part gets to play a leading role in this area, and so on and so forth. So it creates a little more balance. And having this technique is what's allowed me to do that. Because I think if I tried to do this before I knew about voice dialogue, I would have probably been forcing the doer to do everything. And then I would get burned out, and it wouldn't work as well, because there are certain roles where, the doer is not the best part to take the lead. Each role is, or each task is different. Each one of these disciplines is different. And so it requires, and each person you work with is different. So having the ability to move into these different parts pretty seamlessly has been a really huge advantage that I've learned. And that's all from voice dialogue.
Voice dialogue says every single part has a gift and a sting. And so I know that I learned that about all my parts, even the ones I didn't like, they too have a gift. So that's what I'm hearing. Once you realize that, then you can even bring that to your clients. Like the part of you that wants to rest has a lot of value. But if you think you can rest for 70 years, never exercise, and have health, probably not. But the part that if it's all doing energy, people get sick, as you said, burnt out. And I love that. I mean, voice dialogue maintains our healthy personality consists of many different inner selves. That's healthy. And so the idea that you can have a relationship, and like I like to say, a contemporary relationship, because sometimes we grow up and, like, I don't know, someone gets bullied, like at the gym, like you said. And then they have these really conflicted relationships with those parts of themselves that brought them pain early on, but they haven't brought themselves up to date. Like maybe that's a really tender part. And no, you
Mm-hmm.
keep that part close and only within your inner circle, but you don't reject that part outright. You care for it better. Back to the nurturing. Actually, I think voice dialogue as a process is very nurturing, because we say, you go, angry self, go express yourself. How loud can you be? And then we say, you be quiet, silent one, as long as you want. Don't say a word. And voice dialogue has complete room for all of that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of what makes me a good trainer, is that like the nurturing aspect is so huge for people that have a bad experience with exercise, because it's very triggering for some people to be in the gym. It's very triggering for some people to be around a guy like me, because it doesn't seem like it on the screen, but I'm a pretty big guy. I'm athletic. I've been an athlete most of my life. And I think a lot of people have like a preconceived notion about me and people like me and feel intimidated. And for me to take on a nurturing role with somebody like that, I think can be really healing. And it can really help people to like shift their perspective on what it means to exercise now as an adult. You know what I mean? Instead of
Yeah.
always leading with this wounded child self, now you can kind of lead, you can be like, oh, I'm an adult now. And this guy is actually a good guy and he wants to help me. And then it can actually create a lot of healing, or facilitate a lot of healing within a client. And then they can actually start to take steps forward as an adult.
I mean, it goes back to what you were saying about how voice dialogue is great for healing, but also can be used as a creativity tool. Because even though I too found voice dialogue when I was performing professionally, I didn't find it in my acting classes. I found this in a self-help book called Healing the Shame That Binds You. But then I'm like, literally was electrified. Like, what is this voice dialogue? So I hunted it down. And then I worked with the creators, Hal and Sidra Stone, who became my mentors. But just like you said, when I was in the training, I watched the healing happen so rapidly because people could embody different parts of themselves that they couldn't traditionally or in their daily life. And it was so wildly transformative to both see, because if I see it happening to someone else, I'm like, oh, I can have that transformation, my style, but I too can be transformed. So again, the nurturing goes both ways. And that's when I went back and became a therapist and went back to school for that, because I was just so enthralled, but also so energized by this idea. And I don't know if you know this, but did you know I was a fitness instructor even earlier than my,
Yeah, we
and
talked
so,
about this a while ago,
okay.
but it was a long time ago.
Well, just the same thing. Like I watched, I worked for a gym, so I had some pretty mean training. Like they sometimes wanted you to be mean to people, which I didn't do, like point out their flaws as if that was motivating. But
Right.
I watched people change their life through their commitment to fitness. And I'm thinking of one person in particular. Literally, I was just doing my thing, being a fitness trainer, former dancer. Like I like physical fitness. I liked it. But this woman got herself out of a domestic violence situation and then started her own business. I mean, as she got to like really know her own physical power,
Hmm.
then she
Yeah.
got more power in other aspects of her life. And that I watched that happen, and I know that that affected my psychology of transformation. So like you were saying, just pick something, because those selves that you're nurturing when you do that, that starts a whole potential crescendo to a new way of being.
I love that. Yeah, totally.
So I wonder if you can describe a moment without breaking confidentiality, but where you were helping people honoring two different parts of themselves that were opposing parts, and they moved forward in a way maybe you didn't expect, but you helped them navigate two parts that were kind of opposites.
Yeah, totally. I mean, well, here's an interesting one. I mean, this is part of my practice in coaching actors is literally this. Like, this is what we deal with all the time because, like, when you go in for an audition, all actors always are nervous and like self doubt and inner critic, all these things come up and oftentimes really strongly. And so you may have been really comfortable at home with no pressure and you just kind of seamlessly go into this part of yourself and the scene just pops and you're like, I got it. But then you walk in the room or you're on a live Zoom callback or something and like all of a sudden the producer's there and you have to talk to them and you're getting nervous because there's a lot at stake and you're sort of half talking to them and half getting ready. And there's a lot of things kind of you're juggling at the same time. And so this is really interesting to me because what I've found, I've been doing this for years, is that almost 99.9% of the time, the best way to deal with that is to go with what's actually happening inside of you. You may have this idea of like, oh, this is what it was when I was practicing. This is where I'm going to go with it. But when you start to feel that nervousness come up, that self-doubt come up, instead of trying to push it away, really just like slide into it and allow yourself to speak from there. And when we in session do that, even like I'll be coaching someone for an audition, they'll go into that and it's with other actors. So there is a sense of nervousness because you're being watched. Maybe less so, but it's there. We practice that. It's like, oh, you feel self-conscious? Great. Let's go right into that. And when you speak from that part and just do the scene from that part, it often is really, really like riveting in a way that you would have never guessed because A, it's rooted in truth. It's the deep truth of what's going on for you in this moment. And B, it's not your idea of what it is. So it's so spontaneous. And because you've done all the work on the scene already, somehow that's already there and you don't have to hold on to it. It allows you to let go of the work. And so that's one way of letting that in. And then what we end up doing always is like, okay, we allowed that part to speak. We did the scene from there. Now we'll come back to center. We'll go back to the other side of what wants to come up now, or you can choose what other part wants to come up and do it from there. And then oftentimes what you have is like two ways that work. And then you're like, okay, what do I choose? And that's what we always talk about is when you're, especially if you're filming an audition, put the tape on, go into whatever the insecurity is or the self-consciousness or the nervousness is, that part, do the scene from there, come back to center, go to the other side, keep it running, do it from there, and then come back to center. And when you're in center, you can feel both parts on either side of yourself, and you can kind of allow them to come in, and you can do the scene with both parts, like 50% and 50%. And oftentimes you get 3 different takes that really work. And then it's more about taste. It's about, what do you feel? What is the genre of the show? Who's the casting director? What style do they shoot it in? What is this role? And then you can kind of decide what you want. But if they want 2 different takes, you've got 3 and you can choose which one. And it doesn't take long at all. It's like you're done in 10 minutes. So
Amazing.
it's really amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I love the idea of it. It's not. It takes you out of the toggle switch. It's all
Yeah.
good, like,
Yes.
because it is all good. And then, like you said, the decision maker will decide, but not because anything failed or those parts of ourselves that are like, you're not good enough, or those parts that are so devoted to the core negative belief. No, it's like, I don't know, truly a problem of riches, so to
Yeah.
speak.
And the more you do that, the more you just sort of subconsciously train yourself to go, oh, I can do anything as long as I'm truthful. Any of these choices will work as long as I go with what's coming up for me right now. And if you build, it builds a lot of confidence that you don't really need a lot of time, and you can just trust yourself and go with your instincts and go with what this part that's coming up is. And once you feel comfortable with that process, it's really profound what I've seen actors do.
And also, we can completely pull that to anything, to job interviews, even to
Yeah.
decision making. It's just, once again, going to our different selves, our different parts, coming back to center. It's the energetics that I love, because obviously we're talking right now, we're in our talking head mode even, but in fact, all these selves live in our body. They have different energetics. Some of them talk from different places, like the top of the throat. Others are like guttural, and it's a full bodied experience. And so many people are cut off from their bodies as a protection. There's so much sensory overload, and plus whatever our upbringings are. And then the idea that you can get to know these different parts of yourself and where they live in our bodies, even that can reduce some anxiety. Because even if you're like, oh, there, I can feel the anxiety, but it's not all of me. Even that in
Absolutely.
the moment can be like, okay, even though I'm even flooded by that self, I know I'm not just all anxiety. There's always more to me than whatever it is I'm actually feeling in the moment if I get
Yeah,
flooded with a particular self.
absolutely. I mean, I created an exercise called the Harness Your Anger, HATE workout, the Harness Your Anger and Transfer the Energy workout. And I do this with like a lot of clients that have like a lot of anxiety. It really works well with people that have anxiety. Sometimes the people that deal with a lot of like ADHD or even depression, because it's like you get stuck in these parts that like you have 3 hours, but you can't get off the couch, or you have 3 hours, but you're so anxious about what's going on, you can't get yourself to do something, or you have 3 hours, but you have ADHD and you can't focus on one thing at a time. So it's like, okay, we'll do a session, and I'll be like, well, what's bothering you right now? And then they'll start to talk about it. All these emotions will come to the surface, and then I'll give them something rigorous to do. Like I'll give them boxing gloves and I'll have pads, and they'll just haul off on the pads. And then I'll have them like let it out. There's various ways of doing this, but they let it out on an like really like emotionally full open as they're punching the pads. So it's very much like an emotionally cathartic thing. And then once they get through that catharsis, because they're working to exhaustion and they're letting out the emotion, then I'll have them do a gratitude exercise. And I'll just say, well, what are you grateful for? And almost every single time, there'll be something about the situation that was really frustrating them, that was essentially was blocking them to doing the exercise, and was also stopping them from like really stressing them out, is now that they've got through that emotion, they're somehow grateful for that experience on some level. And so it's you totally processing this experience through expression of these different parts of themselves. So it's really it's really effective and cool, when someone's open to doing that work, to see like how quickly they can transform their state of being.
And then that positive feedback loop, you're not stuck. And that alone is empowering. You might be mad, you might be overwhelmed, you might even really not know what to do next, but you're still not stuck. Like I love that exercise. And of
Yeah, just
course,
embrace it and put it into the work,
yeah.
put it into
And
the
then add the
exercise.
voice,
Yeah.
because for those that want to, I'm sure you don't require it if somebody doesn't want to.
I tend to do that when I work out with someone at their own, if they have a gym at their house, or if we work out like online in their apartment or their house. It's not so much at the gym. Although I do have some clients that really don't care about doing it publicly. They don't have that sense of like, they have a strong sense of public solitude. So it's, yeah,
I like
it
that.
depends on the person.
I just had this image of Equinox or somebody having one of their advertisements, like the hate exercise by Erik, and then you just
Yeah,
hear all this noise, and Equinox is like, yes, you can get that here. Who
that'd be
knows?
so cool. Like a little room.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could be a rubber room, which
Right. A little padded room. I would love that.
but we could turn it around. And historically, the rubber room has not been a place of great solace, but now
Right.
it's the rubber room empowerment strategy.
Yes. I love that. I think that's really cool.
So I wanted to ask you also. We talk about voice dialogue today on so many levels. Artistically, have you used voice dialogue almost what I call like as a paintbrush, where you deliberately used an aspect of harnessing an inner self to address a particular problem, writing, because I know you also write, or performing? And if you do, I'd love to like hear how you applied it creatively, like on purpose.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, anytime I have to do something spur of the moment and it requires character work, I always use voice dialogue. Like, there's you as an actor, you get invited to certain things and people want to do cold readings, or like readings where you don't really have any rehearsal time and the writers are working on the script. And so you just get it that day or late the night before and you don't have much time with it. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I have to play a character that's very different from me. And like, what's really great is that with voice dialogue, you can access a part of yourself that's in the ballpark of that part. And you don't have to like play a character because you don't have time to put one together. You can just like read it from that part of yourself. And then it feels really authentic. And people are always like, wow, that was great character work and this and that. And it's like, well, honestly, I just did voice dialogue. Um, and
Can you give an example, like how, what, like, so we can like imagine it literally?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, like, well, for instance, I just did a role on The Gilded Age, and I had to play a character that was like it's from a totally different world. I'm a very casual person. I don't know if you get, I'm like sitting back. I don't sit up straight all the time. I don't have like, I have good posture, but I have a more relaxed sense of being in my body. But the character I was playing is like dressed up in this like, four-piece suit, and like everything is like very formal, and the way I carry myself is very formal. So, and for the audition, I had just gotten it and I had to turn it in right away. So it was like, well, I don't have time to really work on this. So what do? I just found a part of myself that was more regal. And, and the way that part walked kind of had his like hands behind his back, and he had my kind of led with like my nose a little bit more upright. And, it's like very thoughtful, and that, and I just kind of, but it was really quick. I was like, well, what part would this be? And I just started walking. I was like, well, how would this part walk? And then as I walked in that part, I was like, well, what should I wear? And I let that part pick what I wanted to wear out of the closet, which I had this suit jacket, which I never wear. And I was like, oh, this is perfect with the collar and everything. And I ended up booking the part. So, and it was very quick, it was just like a quick turnaround. It was, something that really required to be slightly right of center. I had to have that embodiment of the physicality, and it couldn't be like put on because it's not going to work for TV. So yeah, voice dialogue really came in handy with that.
And a lot of people talk about, well, what about what's fake, what's authentic? I actually don't personally like the word authentic. And so you bring up, these are all parts that are in us. So voice dialogue is not about being fake in a particular way, but it's choosing, it's having conscious choice. Hal and Sidra always used to say, it's like the boring goal is have more conscious choice. That's it, nothing more. However, in there lies liberation and freedom. Like I like to say, you have parts who are private. So if somebody doesn't blurt out what they're actually their strong feeling, they're considered fake. And I'm like, do you mean you have a part that preferred that you don't speak up in that moment? Then if you want to call that part fake, you can, but it's not fake. It's a choice. Right. And I guess for people who are stuck, like they can't get out of the please like me and be nice all the time, which there are people, and you can even see it in my body. It's like, oh, leading with fear. How am I doing? I'm going to look around the room and see what answer you want, and then I'm going to give it to you. Even that I don't call fake. I call that protected. I call that a primary self who is protecting the rest of your cells, because originally it wasn't safe for more of you to come out. And I even had a client once who was getting in a bit of trouble with their employer because they were acting out a bit, thinking that if you didn't bring your 8-year-old little boy to work, your inner 8-year-old boy, like you weren't being authentic. And I'm like, nobody at your job wants your 8-year-old boy there. Nobody. And eventually she's like, wait, I'm supposed to just be fake? I'm like, yeah. And she built a fake self. And that self got her through a lot of turbulence at work, turbulence she had created. And and she's like, you would love what I did today. I was so fake. And she would do this fake stuff. And I was like, congratulations, because I'm sure people adored your fake self. Because right. I also asked her, do you want the job? Because I'm not going to tell someone they should stay at a job they really find unbearable. I'm going to say, let's plan an exit, because I'm not for helping people. Just because a doer in you wants something done, as a facilitator, we need to find out more. But right. After she did want to keep the job, it was really great money for not even full time. Like there was a lot to lose if she lost the job. And then that fake self, she had choice. And not this very wounded. And this 8-year-old in her was wonderful. It was a wonderful inner kid who had terrible trauma. And so we learned to love that part and also not recreate bringing this 8-year-old to places it doesn't belong so it can fail. She stopped setting her own inner child up to fail. She helped nurture her own inner children, and they were never nurtured originally. But she learned how. And I think that's another thing about voice dialogue. And we got the nurture and the performer selves today, is it's so nurturing because it's so allowing and non-judgmental, including of our judgmental selves. All judgments welcome. It's just, where are they in the spectrum and how are they operating in your life? Again, consciously choosing.
Totally.
Well, it's so fun to hang with you. As always, we're going to start to wrap it up. Do you want to share anything? We'll certainly put your info up so people can find you.
I don't think so. This was great. I really enjoyed this so much. I mean, voice dialogue is obviously something that I value. It's been immensely helpful for me personally and also professionally. I feel like it's also been helpful to like many other people that I've like worked with, you know what I mean? Because I've kind of passed this on to so many people in the trainings that we've done and also just like in the work that I've done with people. So it's just such a valuable thing to share. And so anyway, I'm just grateful to be a part. And yeah, it's always nice to see you. I adore you, and getting to have these conversations and work together is also just a treat. So.
And I feel the same. Thanks for talking selves with me.